Hi, everyone. It is Marilyn Allori, and welcome to Who Can It Be Now? I am really thrilled to be talking to Kate Chester today, and I'm going to tell you my experience of Kate and why I asked her to be on the podcast. And I feel like this going to be super beneficial for all of you because she is a mindset coach, a clinical hypnotherapist, a psychologist. She does mental performance, and she's really working with a lot of people now who I can relate to so much, sports people as well as women who were in like their 50s who are rediscovering their new life. The kids are out of the house, the empty nesters. We just have a lot of commonality, her and I, with the people that we work with. So we're going to be having a really great conversation. There's also something about her personally that I'm fascinated by, which is why I wanted to invite her to talk to all of you. So I'm going to tell you a bit about Kate, but before I do that, I'm going to tell you about my experience with Kate because I like to do that. And I don't know a lot about her, but I met her we were just figuring it out, June of 2017. We were at a conference together at Tribe, and I was a case study there, and I was sharing a story, and I talked to Kate after, and she was telling me how much my story like made her laugh, and we got to know each other, and we got to talk and everything. And I was like, oh, I really, really want you on my podcast. And as life takes over, I mean, here we are 7 years later, and I've been following her on Instagram, and I recommend all of you follow her on Instagram, and we'll have everything in the show notes, and we'll also talk about her Instagram handle so that you know where to follow her. And I've been so impressed by the work that she's doing, especially since she's a tennis player and she's in a wheelchair, and which I find super just interesting. I just am really fascinated by her story because when I met her at Tribe, that's where we were at. We were in Canada and Kate lives in England. And it was the first trip, I believe, Kate, that you traveled on your own since your diagnosis. Is that correct? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember it clearly. Yeah, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about all of that and we'll touch on that. But I
Mm.
want to read Kate's bio because I don't know Kate that well. And I love doing interviews with people I don't know that well that I trust. So I definitely trust her as a person that you can hire. I wouldn't bring anybody on the podcast that you don't, but I just want to read her bio and then we're going to get into all these questions. Um, Kate is a psychological and clinical hypnotherapist, EFT practitioner, nutritional therapist, and mental performance coach. She has approximately 30 years experience in these areas, and she graduated in 1994 and just has added a ton of modalities over the years. She works with men and women overcoming anxiety and stress so they can live happier and healthier lives. And she works with athletes, and I just saw a photo of you on Instagram. We're going to talk about that with the athletes you were working on. And she works with them with their mental game to help them perform better and better results, giving them the competitive edge over their competition. She lives in London with her 50-year-old son, 15-year-old son, not 50, 15-year-old son, Billy. And she also, if you go on YouTube, you'll see her cute little dog on her lap, Dixie. And we're going to talk now, Kate. Kate, thank you so much for joining me.
An absolute pleasure. Yeah, I'm excited to for this chat. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
I know, a really long time. So
Mm.
what I was so in, and forgive me if I say anything that's inappropriate or anything, just let me know because you're going to be educating me on something that I'm not educated on.
Mm.
Although I believe my uncle had multiple sclerosis. You have multiple sclerosis, you said, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long ago were you diagnosed with it?
So I was diagnosed in May 2005.
Wow.
So, gosh, that's almost, well, how long is that? It's quite a long time now.
It's almost 20 years. Almost
Yeah,
20
yeah,
years. Yeah.
yeah. So I was 33 at the
Wow.
time. Yeah, so just, my career was taking off. I was out and about, I was confident. Everything was, had everything going. I was all excited and, what you're like when you think you're untouchable. And yeah, so yeah, it came as a massive, massive shock, to say the least.
So you were like, were you working as a therapist then? What were you working as at that point in your life?
You know what? I was working as a computer software programmer.
Oh, great.
And yeah, I was in a completely different area of my life. I mean, goodness knows how I got there. So I actually graduated with a degree in sports psychology originally, when I was 18. And then for whatever reason, somehow my life moved into the software industry. So I was, yeah, in working very long hours to deadlines, within budget, really quite a high pressure situation in a field that, it was fine. I was very, I was in a customer facing role, which was good for me, as opposed to really the programming side of things. But yeah, really, when I look back, what I was doing there, I don't really know. And and these things happen, don't they?
Yes.
I can say it 20 years later.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
these things happen for a reason.
so I want to talk about the diagnosis, but before we do that,
Mm.
so was the diagnosis the thing that brought you on a spiritual healing type of journey so that you're doing this work?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, as soon as literally the day I was diagnosed, um, I I was working, and then I took some sick leave because I couldn't walk, and I literally never went back to
Mm.
that job. And when you're in that sort of vulnerable, well, when you're in that situation, you're very vulnerable and you're desperate because it's your life has just turned upside down. Um, mm.
So that was my question to you. So what were the symptoms that you were having that made you realize there was something wrong?
At that point, in that May 2005, I literally woke up one morning and my legs were shaking and I couldn't really walk.
Mhm.
I mean, up until that, I'd been running, I was playing lots of tennis. And in fact, if I think about it, for the year before, actually, I'd been having lots of symptoms, but hadn't known what it was. So I was getting very tired quickly. I was losing to opponents on the tennis court who I just should not have been losing to. Like, I couldn't understand why I couldn't run fast enough. I couldn't take the pace of the ball. I just couldn't compete with them. My brain, I was having all sorts of brain fog when I think about it. I couldn't concentrate particularly well at work. Things were really, really tricky, that hadn't been tricky before. Like, I've always been quite sharp, quite quick, but suddenly I wasn't. So yeah, there were the symptoms that were probably happening for about a year, but literally, waking up one day and literally couldn't walk. And although, in fact, going back previously as well, when I was losing to people I shouldn't have been losing to, and like when I was going running and getting really tired, I thought I was just unfit. So I
Mm.
started, and actually, back in the day, I used to go out a lot. I used to drink a lot. I used to party. I was, all singing, all dancing. So I thought, oh, maybe I need to rein it in a bit. So I did, and I started training harder. I thought it must be
Yeah.
me. I must just be overdoing it. So yeah, um, I really did not see it coming.
How long did it take before you got the diagnosis from that experience? Do you remember?
It was very quick, actually. A couple of days.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, also because my dad had MS, so actually
Oh,
they were able to join the dots very quickly.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. So when you got that diagnosis and you didn't go back to work, what did you do? How did you manage it? How did you manage you?
Mm. Yeah. So that's I
I'm asking you to go back 20 years to remember, which
yeah,
may be difficult to remember because you're in a totally different mental state now. Like you're teaching
completely.
athletes, you're playing tennis, you're doing everything. That's why I'm so impressed. But I kind of want to give I'm curious the trajectory of where you were and where you are now is just really impressive to me.
Wow. Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, I really, at the time, I cried.
Yeah.
I just kept bursting into tears because I'd seen my dad, who was literally bedbound, couldn't eat. Well, no, he could eat, but he couldn't feed himself, couldn't go to the bathroom, he couldn't move. He was literally just laid out. I mean, he was still had very mentally, he was there as a psychiatrist himself. So he was there, but physically he wasn't able to do much. So I literally, that's all I could see. So I
Yeah.
just cried. I felt like I'd been shot in the heart. Yeah, I just felt like I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. So I was, just cried a lot and couldn't really get up off the sofa. Like it was very, I mean, physically it was hard anyway, but mentally, yeah, I couldn't really, I was in a terrible place.
Were you living
Yeah.
alone at that time, or were you with family?
I was living with my partner at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And my dad had died. Oh, actually, it was 2 years to the day that my dad had died. I was
Oh,
diagnosed.
goodness.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so it was all, and so my mum and my two brothers lived up the road.
That's-
So, and actually, I live in London and I live in an area where I grew up. So I've, yeah, lots of friends and family around. But
Good.
yes, it was, so I did have a lot of support, but everyone was shocked
Yeah.
because also
Yeah,
everyone had
because you were
seen
so
dad.
athletic. What?
Mm, yeah, yeah, and everyone had seen dad, so everyone knew that. And that, yeah, and I was playing tennis. I just started doing triathlons. I would run. So to go to work, I would cycle, stop for a swim on the way. Um,
Oh
yeah, I
my
was
goodness.
totally like completely active. Yeah, yeah, can always move it, doing the sport, as much sport as possible. I just loved it.
Do you remember, because that's amazing to me. Do you remember the moment where you were like, okay, I can't sit on the couch any longer. I have to now accept this part? Or was there an acceptance part? Or was there something like you went to therapy or something that you did that started shifting your, I guess acceptance is the best word. I don't know what it would be. You would tell me. So I said, you're going to have to educate me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Marilyn. It's like, so acceptance, that's, you know what, it took me absolutely years to accept it. And even now I do sometimes, this is still a bit of a journey, to be
Yeah.
honest, of accepting it. But what changed was literally, so my best friend who lives up the road bought me a book called Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis. And it
Mm.
was written by a professor, Australian guy who was diagnosed with MS. And he was diagnosed with MS in his 40s. His mum had had MS and actually had taken her life because she couldn't cope. She was a bit like my dad, completely unable to help herself, like physically torn. She couldn't. He talks about it in his book. So, but so he was diagnosed with MS, and he, being a doctor at the time, he had access to all sorts of journals and PubMed basically, and researched it and found that diet made a massive difference, meditation made a massive difference,
Wow.
exercise, sunlight, vitamin D, various supplements, like nothing, not rocket science, like you know um B vitamins, so nothing really fancy, or like we're like today, but all about getting intricate and detailed. But actually he put together a program called Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis, and and he laid it out, and I literally read it. My friend bought it for me, and she bought herself the same book, and 3 or 4 of our other best friends, so we could all read it. I don't think my other friends read it. She did. So her and I read it. And that was the moment it all changed.
Mm.
Yeah. And that was probably a couple of weeks or a couple of months in to the
Wow.
diagnosis. So, and so it was good because he was a doctor, because my dad was a doctor, and was brought up in a very, well, doctors know best kind of
Yes.
household. And everything else it's a bit woo-woo, it's a bit wacky, and yeah, right. They're just trying to make some money, or very skeptical of anything. So I did have a few barriers to overcome myself, a few obstacles to actually believe him. But because he was a professor, actually that ticked a big box for me. When now I'm not quite like, it's 20, like I said, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
but at the time it was a big deal. So coming to terms with it, or really, I mean, it did take me a long time to embrace what he said, but actually that it was the hope that actually the trajectory that I'd envisaged wasn't necessarily set in stone, which is what I thought it was. I
Yeah.
thought, this is, you end up bedbound and then you die, literally.
Yeah, well, it's what you were witnessing and seeing. So of course that's where you would go. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
So, and then like you got pregnant with this diagnosis.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I knew. Yeah, you're right. I did. So that was, so Billy's now 15, so almost 16. So that was 3 years in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did
Yeah.
it
So,
concern you to have a baby or anything? Or you were like, I'm having a baby or
so with, well, actually, I did have a very good neurologist because who did say, I did talk to her about, should I, can I have a baby? Should I? And she was like, well, you would know. She said, was your dad any less of a dad because because he had MS? I was like, no, he
yeah.
was an amazing dad. She was like, well, there you go. I was like,
Ah,
oh, okay.
that's a great neurologist.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, she was great. So, and then actually, the more I researched it, the more they find that women actually do quite well. You physically, well, because they're not entirely sure why. Presumably it's hormones, but
Yeah.
actually the symptoms can dissipate a bit. You generally feel pretty good um, when you're pregnant and you have MS, which was right. I think I did. Um,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was. There are a few other. Obviously, everyone has something, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yes. Yes.
so there were some things I couldn't do, and yes, it was definitely a worry. Um, and then what would happen afterwards?
Yeah.
Would I be able to look after him?
Yeah.
You know, or her? But running around after a toddler.
Yeah.
All those things, which, well, I suppose it's a bit of a leap of faith, really. I'm not. Yeah, I really wanted. I mean, that's hormones. I really wanted a baby.
That's great. That's amazing.
Mm.
And then how long have you been in a wheelchair now?
Okay, so you know what this. So I think so. When Billy started school, I started using a mobility scooter because
Mm,
by this point, walking to school, even though it was only a 10-minute walk, with a 4-year-old,
yeah.
carrying lunch bags and pulling and other kids and being knocked around, not potentially, my balance wasn't particularly good. I started using mobility scooter, and then the trouble is, then the more you start relying on these things,
Mm,
the less I was walking, so the harder it became. And then really, and then this was so silly. And then this was quite a few years later. And this ties in with when you and I met in 2017, and I was on a massive high, having come back from Toronto, because I'd never thought I would travel independently again. And I'd done lots of independent travel as an adult. Been to Australia on my own, traveled around Asia. I was away for a year just
wow.
backpacking. And I never thought I'd be able to do anything like that again. But somehow found myself in Toronto. In Tribe. I don't know what Stuart said, but he got something he said. I'd taken this, I'd gone there. And then I came back on a massive high because I was so excited that I'd done it. And I hadn't played tennis for 8 years, I don't think. And then no, it'd been more. No, more like 17 years. What am I talking about? And then I came back and I was sitting on the sofa with my son watching Wimbledon, and there was men's wheelchair doubles on the TV. And I'd never seen it or heard of it before. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is a proper sport. This is like, I mean, I saw them. There was 4 gorgeous, athletic, just these men just throw. I'm sure you've seen wheelchair tennis on TV before. I mean, they're just amazing athletes. I mean, the wheelchair skills on grass, and then hitting the ball with such power and just literally flinging themselves around the court. It's like, oh my goodness me, this is the sport I could do. So I then started playing wheelchair tennis.
Now,
And I,
okay, we do have to go back to Tribe a second
yes,
before we
yes,
do that,
yeah.
only because I want to know about that whole travel, what that was like for you, but maybe
Mm.
not. How did you find wheelchair tennis in your area? Did you Google it? Did you hear about it? Did you start it?
Yeah, well, literally, kind of. So literally, I'd seen this thing. I'd seen this on Wimbledon on the Saturday. I was taking my son to the tennis club because he was playing in a little tournament for juniors the next day. I went to the loo, and I was in the loo, and it was a an accessible loo because I was in there on my scooter. And people always use accessible loos as a storage place. So I was
Mhm.
in there thinking, and look, people have just dumped all this stuff in here, and I could barely turn my scooter around. And then no, I did turn my scooter on, and I looked, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're tennis chairs. They're tennis wheelchairs.
No.
Yes. Yeah. So literally I'd literally got back from Tribe on the Thursday or whatever day it was, maybe the Sunday, whatever day it was. Watched the wheelchair tennis like 5 days later. 6 days later, I went, there were these tennis chairs at the tennis club that my son was playing at.
That's great.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my word. And I was on a high, natural high anyway, because of the traveling I'd just done. And then, yeah, so I just phoned whoever it was, like the club secretary, and yeah, said, I want to use these chairs. And she was delighted because, like, oh, fantastic. We've been donated these chairs, but we didn't have anyone to use them.
Oh,
So I was like,
wow.
I'll use them. So yeah, so I turned up to use them. There was another wheelchair player who had her own chair, and there was another guy who I met, young man in his 20s. He had a spinal cord injury,
Mm.
who just wanted to start playing. So yeah, so in fact, yeah, so Oscar and I, the other guy, we had lessons together. They funded it. There's lots of funding for it.
I'm so glad.
Oh,
Did
it's
was
amazing.
now were you able to get coached on it? Was there a coach that would be able to show you how? Because yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, although he wasn't really
he
a
wasn't that type
wheelchair
of
coach.
coach, right? Yeah.
No, but he was up for it. So he went on a training course. I mean, he's an
Oh my,
amazing guy. Yeah, Joe Lake. I mean, the whole club is incredibly inclusive and
amazing.
diverse. Yeah. Yeah. So he went on a wheelchair. In fact, the whole club, all the coaches in the club were sent on a wheelchair coaching course. Um, and I mean, to be honest, they weren't particularly experienced, but it didn't matter. I didn't care. I was just like, oh my goodness me. Because in fact, I'd been having lessons with this guy, with one of the coaches there, holding onto my scooter, standing up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But unless he had hit the ball exactly to my forehand,
You couldn't
I
get
couldn't
it.
hit it. No. So it was great when he did. He's a coach, so he pretty much could.
Right, right.
But but I couldn't do a back. It's quite frustrating because I couldn't even take a step
Yeah.
to get in position. So it was all a bit awkward. So the fact that I could play tennis, well, I mean, it was terrible to begin with. I didn't even have, you've got a seatbelt. I didn't even know to put the seatbelt on, which is highly dangerous. Just I could have come flying out, although I was never moving that fast, so I probably wouldn't have done. But it was a real learning curve, because then it'd be like, because I had no wheelchair skills because I'd never used a wheelchair before.
Oh wow.
And as you know, playing tennis, a lot of it is footwork and about movement.
Yes, totally. Totally.
Yeah. So in the
That's why
same
I'm
with wheelchair. Sorry, go on.
no, that's
Why
why I'm
you're
fascinated by it. I have to watch it. I haven't
mm.
seen it. Yeah.
Oh, you must.
Yeah.
Yeah, Google it or YouTube it. It's oh, yeah. It's I mean, I think I've got some on my Instagram. In fact, on my Instagram, there's some of me um playing. Then
Playing.
I'm jumping ahead again. Then I started playing tournaments.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I'm glad you're jumping ahead. So I'm not even going to go back to the travel thing that much because I want to move into
mm,
your mental performance and everything that you're doing in
mm,
tournaments because I'm so like amazed at this. So with the travel, because here's the thing, Kate,
mm.
I only can talk about myself, right? I don't like traveling much, right? And I'm not in a wheelchair.
Okay.
I tennis is I love playing tennis for fun. I'm pulling myself out of USTA because I don't like that kind of competition anymore. And I know you're going to get all this with the mental stuff. So I'm so impressed. And I use the word impressed like I'm curious to learn for myself. What was the thing for you that said, okay, I'm going to go travel by myself? You said you don't know what Stu said, but that's a big moment. And the reason why I think I'm asking you to remember this thing or to explain what it felt like is because so many of us, no matter what's going on in our lives, we're hitting walls at times. And we can't stay just hitting the wall. We have to make a different decision, a different choice. Like I'm doing that in my own life right now. So I find your conversation, your story very inspiring. And not only because of whatever your predicament is and my predicament is and all of that, there's something that you have, which is why you're a mental performance coach and everything, that people need, which is why we want to talk about what you offer and everything, because we sometimes can't even do it for ourselves. So, I know I just threw a bunch in there, so I'll try to, and I know how to go back to it. Taking that trip, I'm sure you were
Mm.
scared.
Oh
What was
yeah.
going on inside of you that you were like, I have to do this for myself? Because you were always obviously adventurous if you were traveling and backpacking and like incredible.
Yeah. So I love to travel, just love it. And I thought that that was closed off to me. I thought that was not something that I'd ever be able to do on my own again, which was, there were so many things I thought I would never be able to do again.
Yeah.
Like that was just another thing. Um, but then I don't know what he said. I really can't remember, but it was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to Toronto. And before I knew it, I'd booked my flights and a hotel, like literally. and then, and I was nearly beside myself with excitement. And I remember phoning my friend Jill, who bought me that book, my best friend, and I said, oh my goodness, I said, I've booked this trip. I'm going to Toronto. She was nearly beside herself with excitement too. And I said, do you think I should tell them that? And she's like, Kate, she said, she said, you can do. She said, there'll be some people. She said, if I was organising an event, a conference somewhere, and people come from overseas, she said, I'd probably want to know who was
Yeah.
coming. She said, because people will be phoning, telling him that they're gluten free. And I'm not belittling that, because actually, if you're celiac, you're celiac. Just me. But like, there'll be people,
That's
she,
hilarious though. There'll be people calling telling them they're gluten free. That's great. Go ahead.
it's true though, isn't it? And I was like, oh, okay. And but you know what? Still didn't tell anyone, because I just thought, oh, what am I going to tell them? Because I don't need, I don't. I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to get to the airport, and then so Jill, she was literally, and she did talk me. She said, as soon as you checked in, she said, you're their responsibility. She said, you don't need to worry. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right, I don't. So literally, so I'm like, yeah, I can do this. This is absolutely, and what's they going to do? What's the worst that can happen? And which is
Mm,
quite funny actually. But it's not that funny, because what is the worst that can happen is, which I had no idea at this point, that as a disabled traveller, the
mm.
worst that can happen is they can lose your wheelchair. That that can go on another flight, or they can break it, or they can trash it, or they'll leave you on the airplane. They'll forget to come and get you. Like, so, which I luckily didn't know at the time, that there
Yeah,
were all these
because that would have
disasters
just
around.
added a bunch of fear. Yeah, and hesitation.
Yeah. And I was already scared, because it's
Yeah.
like, how am I going to carry my bag? And in fact, again, I think on Instagram, there is a picture of me. I think there's a video of me. I got my son to take the video of me on my little old lady mobility scooter, with my trunk underneath my knees and my crutches in my hand, like on the way to the station to go to the airport.
Good for you.
And I was so scared. But I was like, literally, what is the worst that can happen? They'll have to sort me out. Like literally, and even if the worst happens and they lose my luggage or they lose my scooter, literally, I'm in an airport.
Yeah, they have things.
It's not like
Yeah.
I'm not, I've done more scary things when I backpacked, to Australia and back. So more dangerous things, more risky things. So really, it was just so fun and exciting to be able to have that kind of adventure again, albeit getting on a aeroplane to go to a conference for 5 days and then coming back again is not really like backpacking my way around to Australia and back. But however, in my, however old I was then, can't really remember, my 40s, actually, having had this diagnosis, because your confidence just gets taken away when you've got diagnosis like that. You don't think you can do anything from thinking you can do anything. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm.
So when did you start studying hypnotherapy, EFT? When did you start bringing all of this into your life?
So that was probably around 2012 when my son went. Oh no, it's maybe 2010. Yeah, so when Billy went to nursery and school, I had a bit more time. So I would, and when you're, and I'm sure you'll come across this, when people try and sell you anything when you're in a desperate situation.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and I would try anything because I was desperate.
yeah.
And so I was going for reflexology with this friend of mine. She turned into a friend. And she was my first step into this kind of alternative land, because I went, I always used to love a massage, but really that was about as far as I went,
Alternative, you
really.
did, yeah.
Right. But she was a reflexologist, and I'd read that this was really good for MS. So I thought, great, give it a go. So I went, and she lived around the corner, and it was just amazing. I just loved it. And I'd come out feeling fantastic. And she was, she only ate raw food, and I have to say, at the time, I had never heard anything so ridiculous in my entire life. When she told me, I mean, she told me that, and then she told me about tapping and EFT. So bearing in mind, my dad was a psychiatrist. I'd been brought up in this very straight, very conservative, albeit, lovely, but very straight, narrow-minded,
Yeah,
I mean, very liberal and open to things, but I'd never seen much, like,
yeah,
despite all the travels I'd been on. So she was telling me she only ate raw food, and that if I tapped, then I could achieve anything. I was looking, I remember that.
you must have thought she was nuts.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I already thought she was slightly nuts, but this confirmed everything. I
Yeah,
thought, I can't believe it. And I actually couldn't, how I stifled a laugh and didn't fall on the floor laughing. I mean, really, it was just hilarious. And so I lay there in my having my reflexology, and then came away. And I can't quite remember what happened, but then I did look it up. And I thought, oh, actually, look, there's lots, there's, this tapping, maybe there's something in it. And the nutrition stuff, obviously, with I've been doing some nutrition stuff myself, but the tapping. So I downloaded this manual from Gary Craig, the guy who kind of invented it or made it more popular and popularized it. And I printed it off because it was in the olden days where screens, you couldn't read it off a screen. And I followed the instructions, and literally I tapped, I'm going to say, for about 4 hours.
wow.
Because I couldn't believe what happened. I was literally, before I knew it, I was crying my eyes out about my dad, because he died, and his illness,
Yeah,
and my worries, and all because I'd started tapping on, because I thought, well, I've got a bit of lower backache, I'll tap on that. And 4 hours later, I was still tapping, crying my eyes out. I literally went through this journey in these 4 hours. And then I was like, oh, okay, that was weird, like that was strange. And then I went to the pub to meet some friends, and I stood in the pub for 4 hours, something I hadn't done. I hadn't been able to stand for 4 hours in years.
Well, first of all, I have to say something. That's amazing that you stood. But I'm like, you tapped for 4 hours, you went through this emotional journey, and then you went to the pub, which is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious. But it's just, you're like, I'm gonna go see some friends. That's what we do. We go to the pub. But wow, you stood for 4
Yeah,
hours.
yeah. And then I think my all my friends in the pub thought I must have been crazy because I was thinking, because I'd had a drink as well. Oh my goodness, look at me! I'm standing. I'm standing. I mean, I was
That's
completely.
amazing.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I was a bit, and then ever since then, I mean, I've been slightly evangelical about it, and literally because it I hadn't expected that. I hadn't even focused on that. I just cleared a lot of emotional stuff that
Yeah.
had been obviously weighing me down and been
Yeah,
caught up and I
trapped.
was holding on to. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I'd lived with, so dad had MS for since I was 15, so, or maybe a bit younger even, maybe
Yeah.
14, yeah, 13, 14. So I'd see, you know, I'd lived with that whole thing, and it was, you know, it was different then. You know, he wasn't, yeah, the information wasn't there, the internet wasn't there. And
Yeah.
he was a doctor. He was much, you know, mum had said to him, apparently, you can do all these dietary stuff. And he'd said, oh, no, 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 don't believe in it. So, you know, he had a very different outlook on life generally. But yeah, things were different then, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. They
Yeah,
were.
the information wasn't there.
No. But even, yeah, so that's amazing. So then
Mm.
you became an EFT practitioner, and then was hypnotherapy, you're a psychologist and a hypnotherapist. Did that all happen at the same time?
No, so I originally studied a sports degree in psychology and sport.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, just because I did, and then I don't know, I got sidetracked afterwards. And actually, I should probably tell you,
Oh, so
like,
you
just
had
as
that before, you had that, and then you worked in computer software. So you had those degrees. That's incredible. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, no, absolutely, because I do love a qualification, which is do love a bit of studying. Um, so and in fact, for like, so I know that just to clarify as well, because obviously you're in America and I'm in the UK. So in England, I can call myself a psychologist, but just to say I'm not a clinical psychologist. So I
Yeah.
couldn't, so which I need to be clear for any the American audience, because I'm not a practicing psychologist as such, but I have the psychology degree. So here I can call myself a psychologist, but not clinical psychologist. I don't know what you
Yeah,
call
no,
that
that's,
in America, but just to clarify.
yeah.
Um, and so the hypnotherapy then, so I did so the sports psychology degree was when I was 18, sort of thing. Then but the EFT qualification was when I was in my 40s.
Wow.
And then the hypnotherapy likewise. And then even just last year, I did a top up there to make it a clinic, to make myself to qualify as a clinical hypnotherapist. I've been a hypnotherapist for since 2017. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, an adult
So
just last
when
year.
did you start working with, tell us what you do today, like how you help people, who you help, and what you do, so that people who are hearing you can really understand, oh, Kate can help me with this, Kate can help me with that. Because you have an
Mm,
incredible body of work. It's really amazing. And you also have
mm,
an incredible life experience, which I think is really important when you're working with people in this capacity. At least it's important to me to have somebody who understands pain,
mm.
happiness, expansion, growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is an absolute, I absolutely agree. I mean, it helps enormously. So at the moment, um, well, so I'm going to say I've been doing it for a good 10 years, but helping, I've been working with athletes from so many sports, football, tennis, um, cricket, runners, powerlifters, um, boxers, golfers, all sorts of people from all sorts of sports on their mental performance, and really helping them. People, you know, these athletes, they do all the the physical side of things, all
Mm.
the training, the nutrition, the strategy, um, all the physical side of things, all that kind of stuff, but very little goes on the mental side of things. And actually, if it's that saying, I don't know who said it, if you tell yourself you can do something, you can. If you tell yourself you can't, you can't. Your mind is so powerful in helping you achieve what it is you want to do. And so many of us, and myself included, we tell ourselves stories. We don't believe we can do things. We don't go in with confidence. We don't believe we can do things. We talk ourselves out of things. So we don't perform, we don't do the things we really want to do. And maybe it's because, now at this stage in my life, being, I did some wheelchair competition in the last few years, but not really playing competitive sport. Just, it's so easy to see now that you can just with the slightest mind shift change, you can just literally transform a physical performance. Literally, the depths that you can perform at are so much deeper. You can perform so much better. Your self-belief goes up, your resilience goes up. If you make a mistake, it's like, well, so what? That's part of it. But when you're really under those high pressure situations, and you have these high expectations, making mistakes is often the worst things to do. And I know in some sports, obviously, like cricket that we have here, if you make a mistake, you're out. If you're batting, you're out. So actually the stakes are very high. But you can really, the mental side of it, the mindset is absolutely everything. I feel like I was waffling on there. I'm not quite sure I answered your
You're
question.
not actually, you're not, because that was great. And I'm going to explain something for people who don't understand. There's something that you talked about. So I didn't play team sports when I was a kid. I didn't take it up until I think I was 49. And it was a real life altering experience for me. One, being coached by someone, I was basically telling my coach to F off because I didn't understand how to be coached by someone, And then I learned how to be coached. Two, the dynamics of teamwork and being with somebody and then the other team, it brings up a lot of childhood stuff. And the mental stuff is huge. And I always say on this podcast, I've learned more on the tennis court than I've learned anywhere else about myself. And the thing that I want to say to you, there's two things I want to say because I want to address this. To anybody who's listening, whether they play your sports or not, the type of work you do with people is needed because they can walk away from a dinner party feeling like a loser. Because I can walk off a court feeling like a loser, right? I could put out a product and it fails and feel like there's something wrong with me or I made a bad decision. I get that on the tennis court. So you being able to help people to work through that stuff is so important in every aspect of our life.
Yeah. And and thanks, Riley, because actually, and the reason why, so it's almost like when I work with athletes, so we use tennis with a tennis player. Tennis is just the entry point. Actually, it's what's going on underneath, which is why EFT and hypnosis is so powerful because it works with the subconscious. So, the tennis is conscious. Like a lot of it's, that, I made a mistake, or, telling your coach, you're up here, you're in conscious mind, but it's being driven by subconscious thoughts and feelings, whether it's, like you said, it's, something, that happened at childhood, it's the events, it's the thoughts, the beliefs, our values, our identity, that's driving these behaviors that are, the external, whether you're hitting a forehand, hitting a backhand, the decisions that we make, they're all conscious mind things, right? I'm gonna play really well. But actually, if your subconscious is, well, actually, you're really not a very good tennis player. You've got that chatter in your, what do you mean you're going to play really well? Your subconscious is like, but what if you make a mistake? And, and then you do make a mistake. And then how do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake on the tennis court? Is it, oh, never mind, Marilyn? Or is it, oh, goodness sake, how do you speak to yourself? Because that's your subconscious. You never dream of speaking to someone else like that. Well, I would, if I spoke to someone else like that, I'd be horrified, especially not yeah, I'm so mean to myself, or have, you know, I say that, was so mean to myself, again, with the tapping, completely changes it,
That's
completely
amazing.
changes it. Yeah, there's one time I came off, I will just tell the story, because I came off the tennis court. It was a beautiful day. I really loved my coach. It was the Tuesday morning, so it's a nice time to play. And all that happened was I was in a foul mood. Every time I hit the ball in the net, I was just, oh, Kate, you're rubbish. And I was just so frustrated with myself. And verbally, I was, oh, it was just unpleasant. And even my coach was like, didn't really know what to say. Anyway, so I came home and I was like, and then I was frustrated with myself for being so frustrated because it had ruined a completely good morning. And so I thought, well, I'll just tap on it. So I was tapping on it, like, why was, you know, I'm so frustrated. I was frustrated. And again, before I knew it, I was crying my eyes out. And actually, what I was frustrated at was the fact that I was playing wheelchair tennis and not standing tennis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I just hadn't seen that coming because I thought I dealt with all of that.
Oh,
But it was literally in my subconscious. So I literally, again, half an hour, I thought, oh, okay, there we go. And then literally since then,
I've not had that.
all that's happened on the tennis court is I've had fun.
Oh,
Literally. I mean, it was, yeah. And so that's what, you know, the frustration, you know, it's what's going on underneath. It's not, it's not the fact I hit the ball in the net. That wasn't the problem. That was the entry point. It's, you know, what's going on underneath. Um, yeah, and it's surprising sometimes, or quite often. But yeah, yeah.
what I love about this is there's two things. I want to talk to people who don't play sports, that's happening on an everyday basis. And the thing with that sports does for me personally is it brings it to the forefront very fast. And I am one of those people, like I scream and curse, and if that's why I'm pulling myself out of USTA right now, because when I lose, it feels so atrocious to me that I just don't want to participate right now, because I'm also grieving my mother. I'm grieving a lot of different things. So I'm in a tremendous amount of grief. And I'm like, I can't do that right now to myself. But you're making a lot of sense, because I know that it's bringing up all this stuff from my childhood, from just so many things going on. I'm not going to get into it all here. And it makes sense to me. And the reason why I wanted to say that is I'm so grateful for tennis, because I don't know that I would have gotten the consciousness of what was underneath it had I not started playing the game, because it's really hard to walk off a court and disappoint your partner, disappoint your team, lose. And you carry that, and you don't have to. It's like what you said. I see people walk off the court and they're like, all right, well, if I'm playing for fun, I usually don't care. I'm like, well, I didn't play that great. That's okay. So I love
Yeah.
what you said. I'm going to think about EFT and everything for all of that.
Oh, oh, completely. Honestly, Marilyn, and and I know, as you said, you've got other stuff going on. So, but I do work with a lot of athletes who are literally, and I know that you literally, and yeah, I'd really recommend the EFT, because I do work with who literally are on the verge of giving up. Well, not giving up.
Oh,
I know you're not giving up, but pulling out, because it's they're doing it not for the wrong reasons, and you've got the right reasons. You know, not that anything's right or wrong, but obviously you've got other stuff going on. But these athletes are ones who, yeah, it's so frustrating. They can't deal with the pressure. Like, I
yeah.
mean, it's just unenjoyable for them because it is so. But actually,
Yeah.
that's all out there stuff. Like that's not what's in there. Like, what is it that's, because it's not, you know, that's the effect. Like,
Yeah.
what's at the cause of it? You know, really, what's in there that's driving that frustration and that awful, you know, oh, this is, yeah, this is so bad. I need to get, yeah, I can't do it anymore. When, you know, it's a sport that they love and that they're really good at, and they're competing at a really high level. And sometimes, yeah, maybe it is actually, you know what, it is time to retire, or, you know, do something else, or whatever it is. But they come from then a place of, a natural, that's a decision I want to make, as opposed to it's so frustrating, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
No,
thing
it
with
is
that,
fascinating.
the thing that's important, and it is, so it's very interesting. So I want to say something about that in a second, but what I was going to say is I like when my partner was like, don't give up, it's competitive. And I was like, I never have fun in USTA ever. It's always too much. And it's definitely something I have to work on. But I was talking to my tennis coach and I said something and he's like, take a break from it. Just work on your game. It's not like I'm not playing, but I appreciate the acknowledgement. I am very aware and conscious that there's something there that is very affecting me, but also I'm very vulnerable right now. So everything is like just, it has to be just fun for me right now and, and learn. But there's something you said that I wanted to bring attention to is people, whether they're playing sports or not, they're going in a place in their life where they're about to give up and they don't know why because of the frustration. So you're talking about helping an athlete, but I also feel like I know you help regular people too, because things like this happen in all, like I see it with entrepreneurs. I see it all the time, and you have to know what that stuff is so that you don't walk away from your dreams because then you're just frustrated more. So I'd love for you to talk a tiny bit about the work you're doing, even with women who are finding themselves in a new position in life, or how the work that you do can help people to just stop giving up on themselves. I think that's what it is, or giving up on something that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I'm wrong, just tell me. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I do. I work with, and it is primarily women. I mean, yeah. So yes. So I work with women kind of in their 50s who maybe a change in, their, change in their lives, kids have left home or starting a new job or, or retiring or whatever. But it's this change in their situation and almost feeling lost or not knowing how to deal with it or how to cope with the new situation without feeling guilty. There's a lot of guilt in there. There's a lot of I shouldn't do this because, and it's generally not a it's generally not what they want to do. They feel like they're being forced into it, or they can't do it because they're so used to doing things for other people. So they kind of give up on their own. They don't do the things that they want to do because actually they're not used to being able to doing it. So I suppose it's kind of the same, but there's a different aspect. It's almost like the flip side of it, isn't it? Well, not the flip side of it, but just a different aspect of it, where they're not used to the situation, and it's getting used to a new situation for them, and knowing that it's okay.
I agree with you, but I think that, and tell me if I'm wrong, Kate, because it's your work, the core issues are still subconscious beliefs that are running the ship.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, completely. Yeah. Because it's all in, and it can go right back to our childhood. It can even before that, if well, we're in our, even before we're born, you can these things are, we have these, our subconscious, they're in our being, what our mothers went through, our grandmothers went through, the generations before. So it all comes absolutely right through. So then just being able to make a change, you can't do it at a conscious level because it's not a conscious problem. That's not where the problem is. That's the symptom almost. And like you said earlier, whether it's a dinner party, a game of tennis, new job, releasing a new product, trying, selling something, if it doesn't, we try and change things at this level, it's generally not that's generally not where the change is going to happen. It's at the deeper level, because that is what's running the show. Because you can do it, but you're always going to be a block. There's all your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious is there. It's going to protect you. It's not going to let you step out of the boundary. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to. You might be able to do it a bit, or maybe like baby pigeon steps, or you might do it for a bit and then, oh no,
You go
then
back.
it's like, yeah, so you go, you go to that dinner party, or you release that product, or whatever it is, like, and it doesn't work. Well, there you go, I told you so. You
Mm-hmm.
told you you're useless. Of course you can't do that. Goodness sake. But like, because you tried it once, and you
Yeah.
just mean, and there are a million things that could be contributing to it not working. It's unlikely it's because you're not good enough, but that's what we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. Always, that's what we're never going to put us, well, rarely we're going to put ourselves in a very dangerous situation that's going to threaten our livelihood, threaten us, which stepping out of our comfort zone, our subconscious can't tell the difference between an oncoming bus or a dinner party or a game of tennis.
Yeah.
It's like, it's gonna, the warning is going to go out. It's going to tell you all sorts to get you to not do that again. Yeah.
Oh, um, I love it. I love everything you've shared. And I want to talk about a little bit because we're coming to a close and your
Mm.
story was just so interesting, but I think it's really important because, at least for me, it just, for me, it shows the expertise and where you come from, and also the way that you approach life and the way that I really feel like you probably hold incredible space for the people you work with. So let's talk a bit about like where people can find you. And I know that you're doing like, you've been working with sports people, women's football teams, you work with athletes, but you're also about to do a group course, a monthly membership. You have different things going on that I would love for you to share what you do. We're going to share your website and everything because sometimes people don't read the show notes. So I'd like you to share a bit about that and how they can find you and the best way that you would like them to find you. Her website is katechesser.com. It's KATECHESSER.com, katechesser.com. I'm going to let Kate explain where she's going, but I've been following on her Instagram and I'm enjoying her Instagram so much. I didn't know she was on YouTube, so I'm going to check that out too. So Kate, tell us what you're up to and like what you're doing so how people can come and get to work with you.
Absolutely. So I have, so you've mentioned my website. I'm on Instagram. That's my main place where
And is it
you
your name?
can. Kate Rose Chesser. My middle
Great.
name's Rose. Yeah,
Great.
Kate Rose Chesser, all one word. And there I post daily. I've got all sorts of stuff up there, and you can message me, DM me there. That's a really easy place to get hold of me. I have a group course coming up for athletes and sports people. So, and I'll be running that 2 or 3 times a year. So if that's something you're interested in, you can, obviously you can find out more about that when I'll next be releasing that. I work one-to-one with athletes and sports people too. I also have a very low cost, very minimal investment, very easy self-hypnosis, meditation, what do you call it? Membership, really, a subscription, where I literally release every week. I release a new meditation. You literally put your headphones in, listen, lie down, sit down, relax, and take. They range from 15, 5, 10, 15 minutes up to half an hour, depending on how long you've got. But they're generally relaxing. They're all about, relaxing, confidence, enjoying life, health, happiness, hope, all the good things. And that actually all work in your subconscious still. So literally, that's why you can it's very easy. You just put your headphones in and listen. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
that's on my website too.
So I'm looking at your website. I want to just make sure.
Yeah, you might need to, in fact, while we're recording this, I think my head has gone with
Your
my
head is
links.
gone?
Yeah, I think I was doing some editing earlier.
Oh. Yeah.
But that
So
will
by
be
the time
the
this comes out, it'll be good.
yeah,
So I'll talk to Kate
yeah,
about
yeah.
this. But I would say if there's anything of interest for any of you guys, DM her, or what's your email
Yeah.
just in case?
KateChesser@mac.com.
KateChesser@mac.com, and we'll have everything in the show notes. And then the course that you're launching, is that for athletes, or you said I have a group course I'm about to launch the 5-day challenge?
Yes. Yeah, that one's for athletes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Any
Great.
athlete of any sport, any level, any sport, because people often think that this sort of stuff is just for professionals. It's
No,
so
it's not.
not. It's for
No.
everyone. We all need it.
That's
Yeah.
why trust me, they hear me talk about it all the time. So trust me, it brings back a lot of, I had a great high school experience. It brings back a lot of grammar school experiences on the court.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And the very low monthly price subscription for hypnotherapy and EFT audios, that's for anybody, especially women in their ages of 50s who are just really shifting things, but anybody at all who really wants to shift and get out of their unconscious and into peace and
Yes.
right.
Yeah, and
Good.
just needs a bit more, yeah, peace in their life. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to thank you so much. That was so fascinating. You have to write a book, by the way. I don't know if you want to, but your stories, the way you're a very, really beautiful storyteller. You bring everybody in. You brought me in completely. And they're really beautiful stories. They're great stories. They're also very honest. There's no like hidden agendas. I did this. It's all like this. Like I was in there in the bathroom with you with the wheelchairs, I just love that kind of storytelling because you're on the journey with the person having the experience. So it's so great. No,
Oh, no, you know what? Thanks, Marilyn. I've loved this. It's been so good. I feel like you and I could talk for so long.
we could.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's been brilliant. And no, I think that you've managed to, yeah, I'm not sure I never answered one of your questions. I managed to talk a lot though. So hopefully there was some good stuff in
No,
there.
you think you answered every single one because my brain, I track it and we were going to go back. You went back to Tribe and we told me about the travel. So I think you answered every single one pretty
Oh,
much.
excellent.
Okay. And if not, somebody will let me know. Um,
Yes, brilliant.
so great. Everybody, you can contact Kate. It's Kate Rose. I didn't realize you had your middle name. I know I'm following you because I see all your pictures and I love them and your videos. She has inspiring videos on Instagram too. Kate Rose Chesser on Instagram and katechesser.com. And then direct message you. And anything else?
Yeah. No, that's me. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And do let us know what your biggest takeaway is. And also remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And as I always say, my closing line, who can it be now? It's you. It's always you. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. And have a lovely day or evening whenever you're listening.